I'm Greg Walker. I'm the CEO of ASHB, the Association for Smarter Homes and Buildings, and we're here to discuss probably one of the most underrated topics, but probably one of the most important that we have in our space, and that when one is of increasing relevance over the years, and that's the future of aging in place. And we're going to start off. I'm going to do a brief intro of the topic, very brief, and then have each one of the panelists give a maybe a 1 minute introduction of themselves, and then Elizabeth is going to go over a few slides with some data around aging in place, and then we're going to go through some questions. And at the end of the webinar, we'll leave about 10, 15 minutes at the end for any of the panelists that or the participants that want to ask any questions to the panelists, and then go from there. So I guess why does this matter and why we're here? And obviously, people are living longer in our society and having a lot more societal challenges because of that, and should be celebrated. But there also comes a lot of challenges in that surveys are saying that people want to remain in their own homes and stay connected and become more independent and have their own make their own decisions and focusing around the increasing the quality of individuals' lives. And really, homes and healthcare systems are not really designed for longevity in mind. And there's obvious challenges that people have as they get older, from mobility and vision and hearing and memory, and other sort of challenges like with healthcare costs and professional caregivers being really stretched for their time and resources. And then this call will really look at the current state of aging in place. Aging in place used to be, from a historical perspective, looked at from a very narrow lens, and looking at really preventing falls, emergency response buttons, and grab bars, and wheelchair accessibility, and really what to do when things go wrong. And this is more of bigger picture thinking, and with the new aging in place, that individuals trying to stay healthier, combat loneliness, improve sleep, indoor air quality monitoring, and medication adherence, and lots of different areas around aging in place that will be discussed by the panelists itself. So we're still going through a lot of challenges in the space that will be addressed, like privacy and some of the complexity of some of the systems, and the awareness of some of the solutions that customers are not aware of right now, and then some cost and interoperability is always a big concern. So what we're doing here is looking at some of the new exciting period of aging in place, where addressing with artificial intelligence and homes being more predictive as opposed to reactive in the space, and monitoring becoming much more passive and less intrusive for the individuals. And then we'll look at how we can the technology itself is not going to solve all the problems, because we still have issues around and trust and work around some standards and collaborations with lots of different players in the space, from manufacturers to utilities to telecommunication companies and healthcare companies, and sort of everybody in the space. So with that, I'll go to the panelists, get them to do a brief introduction before we get into some of the questions, and then Elizabeth, her slides. So maybe we'll start with you, Robert. He's taking this from a hospital room. So uh, thanks for the
Yes,
dedication.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm Bob Lane. I've been, I guess, around technology for many, many years. Unfortunately, I broke a bone in my hip this week, and I'm calling from Brampton, Ontario, where I'm in rehab at the moment. You probably remember the Commodore 64. I guess I'm the guy that put that on the market, and I've worked in technology, and I have a consulting business throughout North America. I'm 92 years of age, and I still live at home, and it's a very interesting subject, and I'm very deeply involved now with the federal government, the provincial governments, and trying to solve the various issues that we need to deal with.
Thanks, Robert. Cambria?
You bet. I'm Cambria Jacobs. I'm the founder and CEO of Collaboration in Aging. I run two flagship communities. One is Age Tech Connect Colorado, under the leadership of Jeff Gray, as well as the Longevity Global chapter in Colorado. I bring together people to rethink how we age, live, and design for longer lives. I work across aging and housing and health span, wealth span, technology, care, community design. I also have over 25 years in brand positioning and go-to-market strategy. And I help make complex ideas clear, trusted, and actionable. My work is really grounded in the simple mission of transforming the human experience in aging. Thank you so much for having me.
And Jeff?
I had to take myself off mute there. Hi, I'm Jeff Gray. I'm the founder and CEO of Age Tech Connect, which started 5 years ago as a small networking group called Age Tech Atlanta in Atlanta, Georgia. Today, we're the fastest growing ecosystem of innovators working in age tech and longevity. And we exist simply to help all of those innovators, whether they be startup founders, entrepreneurs, educators, or researchers, achieve greater success by helping them with better access to customers, content, community, and capital as they may need those. And we primarily do that by convening people in spaces together where they can meet one another and network and grow from there. Thanks for having me today.
And Elizabeth, and you can go right into the slides when you're done. And we've been working with Parks Associates in some degree for many years, and Parks Associates is definitely one of the premier smart home technology research organizations, and has an event around the space. But they're definitely a go-to place if you're looking for consulting work or market research around smart homes. So. Elizabeth, you can go ahead.
Great. Thank you so much, Greg. And I am going to see if I can do the screen share while I also introduce myself. So I'm Elizabeth Parks. I'm the president and CMO of Parks Associates. As Greg noted, we are a fairly traditional market research and consulting company. We are proudly celebrating 40 years in business this year, and I will be celebrating my 29th year working here at Parks. My mom, Trisha Parks, is the founder. She worked with Bob Lane, back in the day when she got her start. And we are covering at Parks Associates all aspects of consumer technologies in the home. We also look at the SMB marketplace, the multifamily space, which of course includes senior living and senior communities. We do a lot of custom research work on enterprise and large commercial markets. So I was going to work to set the stage here with just a few slides from one of our most recent consumer studies on assisted technologies for older adults. This is consumer data. We survey 8,000 US internet households every quarter, and then are reporting on the data. And we've been covering the connected health, digital health, and wellness, senior care markets for almost 20 years now within the research work that we're doing. So let me just start off and say that one of the biggest shifts that we're seeing today as far as demographics go is really this rapid growth in family caregiving. So we know now that about 1 in 4 households are either caring for an older adult or expects to become a caregiver in the next 5 years. This is representing nearly 30 million households out of about 135 million households total in the United States. And this continues to grow, providing an enormous opportunity for technology providers to help families understand what's going on within that environment and really ensure that safety and security is there, while also helping a loved one maintain their independence. When we look at what's happening currently with assisted care, it's really important to recognize that Consumers and caregivers are already very comfortable using various technologies to support independent living. In fact, we're showing approximately 16 million households who are using one of these different assistive technologies now. And you can see that's a couple of million households added since 2022. When you think about Parks Associates data, 1% of our research equals about 1.25 million households in the United States. What's also important to recognize about how consumers are and family caregivers are buying these technologies is they are really building an ecosystem. They're purchasing one device and then going out and buying another and layering on these different devices, and then also looking for that integration point to help with awareness, safety, communication, automation, all these things that help explain what's going on in that environment, assuring peace of mind. We also see that the demand for technology support for loved ones continues to grow among family caregivers. And you can see here these intentions to purchase. This is something that Parks Associates has been tracking within all of the research and consumer data work that we do, is what are the intentions to buy this type of technology. We're also looking at familiarity and understanding how familiar consumers are with different technology. So when you look across this chart, you can see that there isn't just one thing that stands out. It really is a number of different devices and applications that are being assembled together to help with again, understanding that peace of mind and what's going on for that loved one. We also understand from the research work that we're doing that consumers do see AI as incredibly valuable when they look at the different types of use cases. So the priorities differ, but there's a lot of practical benefits that we see with AI technologies being embedded into different devices, things like medication reminders, emergency assistance, different ways to interact conversationally that help make the technology easier to use. So the key thing to remember here is that you aren't really selling AI, you're selling solutions to these very everyday problems that the caregiver or the senior are having. You know, just remembering to take medicine is a great example of something that's a daily challenge and where technology could play a huge role. Again, it also gives peace of mind for the family and loved ones that certain things are happening and that everything is good. We also look at this opportunity across different living environments and what that actual opportunity is. So a lot of Parks Associates research work is able to quantify and forecast the growth of different devices, services, and how they're integrated together. And so when we think about things like video doorbells and smart locks and sensors, fall detections, even thermostats, activity monitoring, all of this could be bundled together in a type of amenity package that provides these capabilities together. And when we quantify these markets, we see a $5 billion annual market opportunity. This, though, isn't really just about selling a single device. It really is about delivering continuous connected services that's leveraging a group of devices together that are interconnected. We also see within the research work that we're doing that there is a frequency that we're seeing across the board with remote interactions, and now more than half are getting remote care on a daily or near daily basis through phone calls, the apps, the different connected technologies. So there's this level of confidence that families want to have and that care providers want to have about that physical check-in without actually having to physically be there. And this is really opening up and, as they say, unlocking, incredible opportunities for remote monitoring platforms, proactive notifications, AI generated insights, and just all of the different data that come along with sensor-based technologies. We also show that consumers are rarely relying on just one technology. And this, I think, chart also demonstrates what I noted earlier is this isn't just about one device. This is about multiple devices being able to come together, be integrated, and take that data from across the different devices, leveraging a platform approach. And that becomes very important because that platform is a little bit like the glue and also the connector with all of the different data that helps understand what's going on in that environment. So this long-term value is going to continue to grow because of expanding services that are coming directly out of the devices, the integration, and the platform that's connecting them. Finally, we see that there's this next phase of connected health, not just for senior care, but really any kind of healthcare for any consumer. And it really is focused around purpose-built AI platforms. So we can see that Amazon is combining AI with One Medical, pharmacy services, appointment scheduling. OpenAI has got ChatGPT as a personal health intelligence platform. And we also see Anthropic leveraging Claude and transferring the healthcare systems in the background. Ultimately, this is going to, again, create a lot of disruption in the healthcare market, but also a lot of opportunity to serve the consumer in a very personalized way, and also to keep people where they want to be, which is at home and likely not in any facilities, living independently, but also able to have peace of mind for their loved ones. So thank you so much for the opportunity to present some of Parks Associates' research. We'd love to connect with anybody who's interested in our data, and I'm very excited to continue the conversation with the esteemed group of panelists. So thank you so much, Greg.
Thanks a lot, Elizabeth. So I'll go through some of the questions that we have, and these questions will be open to all the panelists. Don't feel like you need to answer all the questions if you don't feel you want to, but it'll be open for everyone. So the first question here for the four of you is when you think about aging in place, what does it mean to you today, and how has the definition evolved over the past decade?
Greg, as the elder citizen here, I never thought I'd need it, and so therefore, you don't plan to. You think it will never happen, but what I have to say to people is just like I said to people when I teach school: the day you graduate, you better get ready to the day that you're going to retire. So I think that we are not realizing we're living longer, and we're certainly not taking the steps to understand what's going to happen. Now, we do have a generation that is very old, and it is not very tech savvy. So we're going to have to really worry about that 1585 to 100 generation, which is still a very large group. And so therefore, when we think of technology and things that we need to do, we better understand their needs because most, if not all of them, have never seen an iPhone, and they certainly don't know what a computer is and how it operates.
So I think it's a great question about what aging in place is. And I take a little bit of a twist on that. Instead of aging in place, I really look at it as living well at home. right? Because that's really the goal, is that we're not trying to, yes, both can be true. Yes, there will be crises. Yes, there's safety issues. Yes, we might be declining, but we also are living. So how are we actually developing and building and designing homes that just encompass this stage of life like we do all the other stages? And I think that's a little bit of a shift, that it has been about what do we need to do to make sure we can watch mom and dad or aunt or grandma all the time, which then makes the kids, right, the sandwich generation, hover and be helicopters. So how do we make a shift where we give our older adults the respect and independence that they've earned and deserved, and helping them live well through these technologies, through this development, and have the safeties in place that also give us security and safety, but optimizing first for living well, not aging and managing emergencies.
Yeah, and I might add in there, I think that the aging in place is an interesting term, because really we're all, I mean, it's not just seniors who are aging. I mean, 5-year-olds are also aging in place. Everybody is aging unless you're dead. I mean, that's just how it works. So I do think that there's technology has advanced so that it's becoming very normalized in a lot of ways to have a wearable on, to be tracking your heart rates, to be looking at your pulse, to be talking to your wife or what, these wearables are now considered everyday devices. And I think that we're going to, I mean, more than half of all households have a wearable, almost a third have a smart watch. And so I think those watches are going to become very, very powerful, particularly when we think about fall detection, presence detection, and all of the different sensor-based technologies that are coming along with hardware that can be predictive and proactive, meaning we can tell something's going to happen before it happens and have an impact there. And there is also the money side of that, because of course all these things have to be paid for, and that's the services side, the monthly recurring service revenue that everybody is getting accustomed to, even if you don't like it. And I think streaming services and Netflix, ESPN prove that out pretty readily, that consumers are willing to pay for these services, even if they say they aren't. They are, and they're already doing it now. So I think there's a lot of interesting dynamics when we think about the service-based healthcare market, especially for around safety and security.
Thanks a lot. I think the next question here is, we often associate aging in place, or whatever you would like to call it, with emergency response and fall detection. How do we shift the conversation towards wellness, prevention, comfort, and quality of life?
I'll jump in on that one. I think, as from my perspective in the industry, interacting with thousands of startups a year that meet with varying degrees of success, I think your question is really about how innovators approach creating new products and finding out what customers really want. As an example, we did extensive caregiver polling years ago in another entity that I owned, and this is interviews with polls of various kinds around what the needs and wish lists were for people aging in place and also the caregivers that supported them. And overarchingly, three things came out that were like, these three things I'm going to list were like 100 miles or 100 times more important than anything else. And the number one thing was, I need more, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough time, and I'm struggling to navigate the healthcare system. And that hasn't changed. It's been very persistent. So what products can we develop and put in the home that help people address the three most important things consistently polled that are their major pain points? And I think what I would share with you is that I see a lot of nice to have products developed that don't meet those needs, or other ones that are, cancer, not a cough, high level problems that we can solve for people and help them by installing technology in the house versus creating things that we think they might need, but they really don't need, don't care about. So That is kind of how I think about this aging in place marketplace.
Hi, I'm Eve Hill. I'm from Customized Aging. I am an aging in place specialist. I speak out for accessible design and against ageism. And I think one of the things that's really exciting in technology today and how things are being measured. Some technology now is measuring the positive patterns, not just the negative patterns. And I think that not only provides great data, it also is a positive reinforcement to the people who are getting the product, because they're like, oh, this isn't looking for when I'm doing something bad. This is maintaining who I am and seeing me into the future as maintaining positive patterns and making that possible. So I think that's good for our culture and the narrative that supports us talking to consumers, because as you say, Jeffrey, that they need and everybody else, they need a way to navigate the system. And so any technology that can help make that easier, I think I'm all for that. Thank you.
I agree. And I get back to the everyday living. Start with how do we optimize to live our best lives at all of the stages of our lives. And the third of life is no different. What does that really look like? And let's optimize for well living before we start optimizing for crisis. Don't ignore them, but both can be true. And that might look like better lighting and indoor air quality and acoustics and temperature control, flexible spaces, all of those kinds of things, but part of a better, broader wellness living kind of platform of what that looks like for all the different types of older adults. As we know, at every stage in our life, not every 30-year-old's the same. Well, certainly no 70-year-old is the same in terms of what a good life looks like for them. And of course, emergency response still matters. And for, fall detection, all of those things. But I love what you were saying, Eve, about picking up on what does normal look like for that person, that household, and then identifying patterns that maybe are showing a shift where we can go ahead and optimize for that wellness living moving forward. How do we do that to make sure we keep being able to live the life we want to live in wherever we call home?
One of the things we learned in, I've been part of ASHB for many, many years, previous with CABA, is that people, when they buy a house or rent a house or anything of that nature, they're looking for marble floors, they're looking for bathtubs, and they're not looking for anything that it might protect them. As a matter of fact, for many, many years, and I guess Elizabeth can back me up on this, smoke detectors, battery operated ones, the kids used to take the batteries out of them so they could run their Xboxes. So we have to get a better understanding that if you're going to live in your house for many, many years, it better be equipped to do any of these things. We better also understand that in rural America and rural Canada, we have very poor networking. We don't have a lot of people that can affordability is a nature of a thing. And those are all issues within the construction and building industry, which, whether it's an apartment building or, Elizabeth or Cambria in your area, the multi-res in Denver.
And what smart home technologies are having the greatest impact today? And which emerging technologies are you most excited for the next 5 to 10 years? I think a few have spoke to some.
Well, I could jump in here because we have a lot of data on this, but I do think that the PERS devices are still in play, but frankly, it doesn't seem like there's a stigma to these pendants or the traditional PERS device. Older people are like, I'm not wearing that because I'm not old, right? So they don't like that form factor. They don't even want to be in the same room with the device because they don't need that. So really got to start thinking about these different wearables devices, and then basically hardware that has voice in it can be so useful because you can there's just a lot of accessibility in terms of communication. The problem and challenge, I think, though, there's a business side of the problem of how does all this get paid for, who's paying for it, and how much am I having to pay? And then the company who's delivering that hardware and the service making the bottom line work. I think that's still a big challenge right now. But that capability of connecting through voice, I think, is a very important one. We also see the smart TV will be really emerging as the largest screen in the house as an interactive way to be talking to the doctors or care providers, and that's also going to be, I think, a really big deal for seniors because they're very much used to the television. It's a big screen. There's easy ways to interact as long as the software platforms are built well. And there's a lot of integration that can go through the television operating system. And so when we think about these different devices in the home, certainly the television, the smart speaker, and of course the security system, the security players, by the nature of what they're supposed to do is to keep people safe in their homes. And so we continue to see the larger players and smaller really thinking about how can we serve seniors in a new and different way. And there's a lot around that with, again, this sensor-based technology that's emerging. So I still think we've got a little ways to go, but a lot around the smart home. The business side, though, is a challenge.
But Elizabeth, I've got one of these very smart TV sets from, the big carriers here in Canada, and it's got a little box, a little device to move it, and I can't read the buttons because they're so small, and that's a major problem with older people. Most of them have eye problems, and they're getting miniaturization, and that's a problem. So we've got to match the nice things that we've got out there with the simple things that will make them work.
And I think
voice activation is great as long as it works.
yeah. And Bob, I think you hit on all of those points. Design with, not for. Just like we do for every other customer segment and successful business market. If that smart TV that you were just referring to, if we were really looking at all of our customer segments and we look at our 65 plus or 75 plus, depending on how that manufacturer segmented the market, they would, just like every other segment, sit down with you to understand, how do you use this? How does this work into your everyday life? And instantly they would learn, guess what? We've got a design flaw here. The user experience is an epic fail because the size of our buttons and our font is not relatable and usable to our customer. And we do this in every smart segment today, whether that's travel, hospitality, et cetera. And I think we're starting to see that with groups like this, as well as the metrics that we have. Those are the businesses that, one, are going to address the top three that Jeff just identified, making sure it's the big, not nice to haves, but absolutely need to haves. And then those products are not only integrated, but they also are designed with that customer segment in mind and those key personas within that. What is the business case? What's the user experience? And does our product match that? And then, of course, how are we going to pay for it, right? And who's going to reimburse me for it? But all of those, I think, are deeply important to the usability and adaptability and where you'll see the adoption start to take place.
Well, that's a good segue into the next question. Cost is often a concern. So, what financing options, tax credits, incentives, and other policy changes could make aging in place solutions more accessible?
Well, let me jump in on that. I think a couple of things. First of all, this kind of ties to the previous question. I think I am 100%, 99% sure the biggest and most successful advancement in aging in place technology will be happening soon as we have robots in the house that can help with real tasks. And we're super close on that. There's companies right now that have solutions that are already working. Prices will come down. I think there's a lot of people that would buy a $10,000 robot, a $15,000 robot, and finance it in exchange for the kind of help that device could render. I don't see that price point being an obstacle because I think the device itself will be so desirable.
Not a hope. Bye, boy.
Huh?
I've seen vacuum cleaners and all the rest of it for years and years. It's
Hey,
not.
I'll tell you. Saw there's a product where I don't want to do any product plugs here, but
No.
these guys have a robot that's that is really working for people aging in place at home that need care assistance. So we're seeing it work at some level. I also think that the macro changes that are happening at CMS and these radical shifts and things that are going on in this very intense drive to push everything to value-based care. I think we may be approaching a time when health plans, Medicare Advantage plans, perhaps, and even hospitals that are operating under certain CMS models like Team may pay for grab bars, right?
Right.
If you have one capitated rate for a femoral neck break, and that patient is going to go home to an environment that we know is not safe and secure, a $160 grab bar installation may suddenly be something that the hospital is willing to pay for or the health plan. So I think these macro shifts in how our healthcare system works for people 65 plus may actually open up opportunities for there to be payers tomorrow where there's not a payer today. That's a little bit aspirational, but I think the reasoning there is, I think, sound.
We have it in Ontario. You can get wheelchairs and those things. The problem is we found out that over 50% of the people don't even understand what's available. So a lot of it is an education job. It's not well circulated. It is very complicated. We have a very complicated health system in this country in that we have a federal government that technically controls it, but funds the provinces to execute it. And so therefore you have execution in various formats across the country. Everybody can get health care in one form or another, but unfortunately you don't know what you're getting and what you're entitled to until you have to go and ask for it.
There are some states across the country that have some wonderful models that are working in home modification tax incentives. And I can echo some things that Louis Tenenbaum said about how far that can get, and maybe the way is through the states. And there's someone on this call, Susan Kimmel, who has worked with Louis for many, many years and worked on these home modification tax incentives. And I think I worked on it at a point where we were talking about trying to do it federally, and it becomes clearer and clearer to all of us that the more local you begin, the more chance you have. And so I think looking into some of the home modification tax incentive programs in other parts of the country as models for your own area might be a way forward. And I think even with the difficulties we have in the administration, I think that there's a lot of willingness to address it because of what you said about how really it is a very small expense when you think about the fall that could happen and the consequences from that.
I also add in, I think somebody asked about recidivism rates, getting back into the hospital and how is remote patient monitoring. And certainly that is a really big deal to try and keep people where they aren't having to come back into the hospital for any reason. I also would say that, private equity right now is going around buying up the hospitals in rural America and then shutting them down because they don't make enough money, which is crazy to me. It should seem like private equity should not be allowed to do that. Like there should be a law that they're not allowed to do that, right? Because healthcare shouldn't be about profit. It should be about healthcare. But that is how the system is. And so that fact of the matter of what's happening in rural America is going to force some of this stuff to happen because there will be nowhere to go. Care will have to be delivered remotely because there's nowhere to go to get healthcare, right? And that's going to force new technologies to be developed and utilized and offered, just like healthcare was forced into all sorts of things with COVID. There wasn't an option. We have to make this adjustment. Some of that got rolled back. Some of it didn't. Telehealth has taken on a whole new meaning since the pandemic. But it still isn't as satisfying in a lot of ways as perhaps just showing up somewhere and feeling like, oh, my most reliable experience is going to be when I go talk to a doctor. So there's a lot of perceptions that are also going to have to be changed, but it needs to come with the reliability of whatever is being delivered. Because if it doesn't work, you just lost your customer, who's also maybe your patient. And if the patient is sick at all, or whatever's going on, they have no patience for keeping up with technology that doesn't work, and they're not going to be willing to try to figure it out. So I think there are a lot of different obstacles, but things seem like they're going to come to a head, especially if we keep eliminating some of the physical environments that people would be, traditionally reliant on.
Hey, you're 100% right on this shortage thing. So, we're seeing people locked into the home that they've got for a lot of reasons. So maybe the biggest shift in aging in place over the last decade is the fact that it's really gone from something that people aspire to something that they're going to have to live with no matter what. In the US, we're short about 3,000 skilled nursing facilities, and we're not going to build 3 this year in the United States. So, and with the cutbacks in Medicaid, if you're not super affluent and you need a Medicaid paid nursing home, right, which is basically a SNF, good luck getting into one, right?
You're off to Mexico.
Yep. And so I think there are some things happening at the macroeconomic level that are just forcing aging in place to evolve at a pace that maybe it wasn't going to before these changes came to pass. And to some extent, I'm optimistic about that as well, at least the opportunities.
Yeah, in thinking about how care is delivered, I remember a conversation a couple of years ago with a major service provider who was in the healthcare space, who told me something to the effect of, once this generation of doctors dies out, that is when things are going to really ramp up. And so I think there's also the physician mentality and the doctors who may not see technology in some ways as helpful as they'd like it to be. And I do think that AI, of course, is going to change the whole world in lots of ways, but there are a lot of AI technologies that could really end up helping doctors. For instance, the AI tool that's listening to the whole appointment and then does the coding for them. And now they don't have to do the codes. They just review it and check it. And they just eliminated the paperwork, and they eliminated maybe paying somebody to help them do that. So I do think that things will speed up, but it's also there's a mindset going on with patient care and who's your doctor provider, as well as who's the customer or the patient on the other side of it. How much do they care about technology, or willing to adopt something new?
Elizabeth, I think it's time that the patient has all of the medical history in their control. I think that we need a simple QR code which can sit on my thing, and when I travel anywhere in the world, I can allow a doctor to access my medical care and what I've had in the past. And everybody, we've got to get rid of all the silos. I go from hospital to hospital and they fill out the forms all again. I've been moved 3 times in the last 10 days and I filled out the forms 3 times. It's my data, it's my information, and I know the technology today is available.
Yeah, and the medical records, that's what's happened with that. That's been going on for over a decade, like 2 decades.
Yeah.
A decade.
We spent billions in the province of Ontario only to announce a few weeks ago we're starting all over again.
Heck, you can go to the ER at a hospital in a top hospital in America, get triaged, go over all your meds, get admitted into the hospital, go 2 floors in, get in your bed, have a physician come in to go over your meds, and they're wrong. In the 200 yards, yards you traveled upstairs,
right.
They don't have your meds, and they just,
I know.
Where did they go?
Vanished. It's available. We'll talk about that one. We've got it. We got one going and right on trial.
So I think at this stage we have a little bit of time left. Maybe we can open up to the audience for questions. And Marta, if you could make sure everyone has the opportunity to speak, if you could just raise your hand, and I think we would take preference for those that they can speak their questions and go from there. So Vicky, thank you.
So I put this in the chat, and I can't seem to get myself on camera, but my question is to Robert, and that is if I have permission. I'm a retired physical therapist, and I'm the author of Aging Safely, Wisely, and Well, a movement and mindset guide for older adults. I would love to speak to Robert if he's open to it and see if some of the things I have to offer can get him moving even faster and better. So it's a shameless promotion and request.
I'd be more than happy. I think they're going to send out our contacts. You can look me up. I'm on LinkedIn somewhere, so
Awesome.
You can find me. I'm open to talk to anybody.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This has just been inspiring. And so you are in particular.
Suzanne?
Yeah, Greg, you're on.
Suzanne do you want to go next? Maybe David Katz?
Yeah, hi, Greg. I'm home from medical, and I had to have a healthcare worker in Ontario come 1 hour a day, and luckily I am recovering, and I won't debate the benefits of healthcare in the two countries. I have an American family and a Canadian family, so but I do say that some of the smart things that we can talk about and pay for is by, as I just saw in the previous version, is making the home smarter from an energy point of view. And, we have a large effort here in terms of somebody mute. Somebody can mute. Can you, Greg, can you take that? Can you hear me?
Got you.
Okay, sorry. I was speaking over somebody. Anyway, my suggestion is, including all the smart things like, Alexis, etc. I've discovered there are certain things, including grab bars. Many of the health things are related to broken hips in the bathroom, and you could get these things that are suction cups that can be fitted on the wall. We have the technology, both smart, physical, and digital, that could help. And we have to, as most people have said, educate. But it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. I'll stop there. But if we can save energy by using the smart thermostat, by avoiding waste, getting better insulation, better windows, better the building envelope, etc. I'll stop there.
I'm sorry, I have to jump in here because my father-in-law used to say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. If you go onto YouTube, you will see old dogs being taught new tricks.
Well, I can jump in and add to this. We do quite a bit of research in energy management and understanding the devices in the home, how much energy is being utilized, the role of the utility with demand response programs, and being able to try to control the load on the grid by utilizing individual homes and then perhaps combining them together for virtual power plants, all this sort of thing. And ultimately, that the concern that people have about the cost of energy is, of course, the price of energy, and then if they're really green people, the environmental concerns. And so, still, electricity is not that expensive for people to care that much. They don't really look at their bills much at all. Not even really once a month. People do not look at their electricity bills in the United States. So we do believe, though, that energy management is a pillar of the smart home, the connected home space. It's a driver. It's a reason why people go out and buy things to save money, to save electricity. The other reasons are to keep their family and their most precious items, including their home, safe. So it's safety and security, and then that cost savings, and then convenience. Those are all the reasons why people are buying these types of smart home products. And I think it's absolutely right. If people are not familiar with something, they will not purchase it. So the marketing efforts, the education, and we know from our consumer research that word of mouth is how people come onto these things. It's either an incident happens and now they're in crisis mode and trying to figure it out, which is the worst time to try and figure things out, or they heard about it from somewhere and they thought, oh, that could be valuable for me. I'm interested in that. So I still think there's tons of education that needs to be done, and hopefully we'll see some, the companies that can make the biggest splash with educating consumers are the massive, huge, giant corporations, because they can get the reach with the advertising. They can be out in the local community, talking to people in these certain situations and helping educate them. And it's got to be done. The smaller companies can have an impact, but not like the big companies. And I mean, I think if you think about Ring doorbell, there's a great example. Nobody cared about a video doorbell. There wasn't one until Ring was introduced. And then when Amazon bought it for $1 billion, now half of the United States owns out of the people who own a doorbell, half of them are Ring doorbells. So companies like Amazon, like Google, like the major service providers, like a T-Mobile, like a Comcast or a Verizon, who reaches tens of millions of households, are the ones who ultimately are going to have a huge impact on educating the market. So I think it's going to take a little while, though.
Can I make a comment on this big company idea? It is worth noting that years ago, a joint venture was formed between a healthcare plan and Comcast, known as Quill. Quill endeavored.
Yeah, we had TELUS Health. We had them on the CABA webinar with us.
So what Quill found out the hard way was that ultimately they could not give these aging in place systems away. Literally could not give them away. They were so unsuccessful at selling directly to the consumer that they tried giving them to their own employees who had care needs, and the employees wouldn't even take them for free. And the problem is that people may not want these systems that we envision, whether it's a huge company like Comcast or a small upstart. I think Cambria kind of nailed it, I think, the best in her introduction and some of her comments. The solutions that we on this call may think are the ones that are valuable to consumers may or may not be. And the companies that get it right listen. I think Ring listened. I think Ring figured out that people wanted a video doorbell. And they were a very big company at the time that they were acquired by Amazon. So not being critical of Elizabeth's comments, I think she's really spot on. But I do think it's really building something that people really, really want is job one, and it often gets missed.
And I think using the security company, because they value that more, as Elizabeth said, than the cost of electricity. They spend more at Starbucks for coffee. But that may be the vehicle into the home.
Sure, I'll
Going down
make
the
a
list.
point.
Yeah.
So we were talking about some of these big companies putting different technologies into home, and sometimes I think these big companies think these different products are do-it-yourself products. But the reality is that many products are so nuanced. And so really to bring it to its full fruition in a home and actually have a really positive impact on the person living in the home and the family, you need some person that has knowledge about how people are actually truly functioning in the home to help set it up and help optimize it so that it truly is providing the support and the monitoring and the wraparound monitoring that it's intended to do. These are not do-it-yourself products ever. And the big companies don't realize that. The big companies want to be in the home because they want to sell other products, such as TELUS. But it's just incredibly important to pair that with a real live person who can actually titrate things so that they're actually supporting the person and giving actionable information to the family that may live in the home or may live in a whole other country. So I just wanted to make that point because I hear a lot of like, oh, the big companies, we need to get these products out to big companies, but big companies, they don't have the living lab of actually seeing the technology and playing with the technology and titrating the technology with the end user. They're not getting a whole feedback loop. And I think that's a really important point to make.
Carol addressed an issue I've wanted to address for years, and I'm seeing it more recently now with the people that I'm selling. I've got 5 decades in real estate, and the people that I'm dealing with are seniors a lot of the times. And the issue that comes up over and over and over are the same things that even I deal with, which are, oh, I can't get the password. Oh, I have to upgrade. What do I need to do? How can I do this? When can I do this? And then I was just talking to a friend this morning, and they got a circulation machine that will help them, and all she had to do was plug it into the wall, and it gives her several things that she needs to know that she can report to her physician, and she doesn't have to do anything else. So technology is great, but until we get something that is simple that works, it's going to be a tough road to hoe.
And technology implementation isn't just one and done. We know that older adults and people with chronic disabilities, be them cognitive or intellectual, there's a certain pattern of learning and integrating. It's not just one and done. It's a constant reiteration and working alongside to demystify what the technology can do for them. And I forget the woman at the beginning, who I think is a branding expert. It's about, and sort of a UX person by the sounds of it. But what you were saying really resonated with me because it's about creating products that, and Bob said this too, that know the target market, know that the letters need to be big, know that there can't be logins or passwords. It has to be one press of a little button that says, press this button to have a video call with your daughter who lives in Ireland. And you can teach older adults if you really keep the user experience aligned with your target
international healthcare. Okay, thanks, guys.
market. Bob.
Yes. Tech
Yeah.
integrator. Yes.
Yeah. Well, thanks. It's been a very productive conversations. We're going to be sharing the recording with everybody that registered on the call and the contact information of the panelists. We're not going to be able to get to we got a lot of questions that came in. There's no way for us to get to them all. But maybe we could finish off with any closing remarks from the panelists before we exit. And if you have any questions about the webinar, or you can always feel free to reach out to Marta or myself, and we'll get you in touch with the right folks. So any last remarks from our panelists?
I'd
Start
like
with
to,
you, Robert.
I think it's a very complicated process. We've got to start looking at it. We've got to start right at the beginning. We've got to get everybody involved, and that means government, insurance, and hospitals, etc. It's got to be simple. Devices and platforms you want to create or try to sell, make them easy to operate and understand. And yes, do not expect older people, I hear it all the time, to relish upgrades and the newest app that your young Turks sitting in the lab want to introduce to me. I don't want to have a change in my app or the way my phone looks every other day. It'll never work. So I'm here to help you. I will. You want to reach out to me? I'm willing to chat to anybody around the world.
Elizabeth?
I just wanted to say thank you so much for the opportunity to join. And this is an area that we're covering within our research extensively. We also host our Connected Health Summit and have a study on owner operators of senior living and another consumer study coming out shortly. So thank you, Greg and ASHB, for the invitation to join.
Just one other short comment, and we're trying to touch every generation because it isn't about just the elderly.
Truth.
Cambria, any last words?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone here we're hitting on a lot of challenges and opportunities, and just a great reminder that just because a consumer might be older doesn't mean they're not the consumer and they don't have specialized needs, just like we do at every stage. And for whatever reason, the third of life and our user experience and our customer experience, somehow we fear and have sort of lacked the innovation there. And now everyone knows, oh gosh, there's all this opportunity. But guess what? We're going to throw out all the things we've known that have worked for years and years and years before to make a successful business. Let's look at the best of the best in UX, CX design, and apply it to all of the life stages and the life experience of how we go through the world, from waking up to go to the bathroom, to take a shower, to go to the grocery store, to the doctor. What's the hospitality of that experience? And have we applied that to every touch point throughout that? And the answer is we know we haven't, and we haven't looked at it through their eyes. And if we work backwards from that customer, what would that experience be? And that should be what we hold ourselves accountable, because that's where we're going to get our stickiness and see the difference that we all want. Mr. Gray?
Nothing to add that this great panel hasn't already talked about. Thanks so much for inviting me to be a part of this and giving me the opportunity to contribute to the conversation.
Good to see you.
And thanks a lot, all the panelists and everyone who attended. And we'll be in communication shortly with the recording and the contact info.